In this section, we are going to start by defining a very important concept for calculus called the average rate of change. So we will definitely need this in pre-calculus, and it looks really scary. It's f of b minus f of a over b minus a represents the average rate of change of the y values of f over a particular time period or a particular set of x's from a to b. This looks really scary, but if we think about it, a and B are just numbers that represent x's. So think of these as like x1 and x2. And then what would f of A be? F always represents a y value. So f of A and f of B are y values. Think y1, y2. So really, this is the same as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, where x1 is A and then y1 is the y value that comes out when we plug that in. And does this look familiar? What is it? It's just the slope of a line. So when you hear average rate of change, what you should be hearing is, oh, I need to find the slope of the line between these two x values. All right, so let's give this a try in a particular situation. We are given the function f of x is the equation 3x squared minus 5, and we want to go on the interval -2 to 1. Now, you always need an interval. What is this interval? Well, remember, AB is the interval, so A is the smaller number in the interval, and B is the larger number in the interval. So in our equation, A is the -2 and B is the 1. Right? So what we need to know is what are f of A and f of B. So we'll just quickly, what is f of -2? So that's 3, and then remember to plug it in parentheses, times -2 squared minus 5, and that equals 7. What is f of 1? Well, that's 3 times 1 squared minus 5, which is -2. Now that we know f of b, which is f of 1, and f of a, which is f of -2, we can plug it into this equation. So f of 1 minus f of -2 over 1 minus -2. That is the plugging in of f of b minus f of a over b minus a, where a and b are -2 and 1. Now, well, we know f of 1, we just calculated that, that is -2. And we know f of -2, that is a 7. So we have -2 minus 7, and then 1 minus a -2, well, that's 1 plus 2, correct? So this gives us -9 over 3, or the average rate of change of the y values is -3. What does that tell us? It tells us the y values on average are decreasing, and on average they're decreasing at a speed of -3. So it's just the slope between those 2 points. You need to be able to find the average rate of change on any x interval that they give you for any equation, and it's just slope. But we also need to be able to do this in 2 other ways. We need to be able to do this using both graphs and tables. And this can get a little tricky, and they can word things a little funky, so let's look at a different one here. We want to find the average rate of change of g of x, and this graph right here represents g of x. And notice they're not giving us an interval and interval notation, they're just saying, here's your interval, go from this x to this x. So remember, a is always the smaller x and b is always the bigger x. So what is g of our a? What is g of -1? Well, how do I find that? Well, x is -1, and what is g of -1? That's the y value. So when x is -1, what is that y value right there? It's kind of hard to see, but that y value is in fact -3. And what is g of 3? Remember, that's just what is the y value when x is 3. So here is x is 3, and we're going to go up to the graph, and here is the place where x is 3, and what is the y value here? Looks like the y value is difficult to see, but it is 13. Okay, now we know our f of b and our f of a and our b and our a, so we can plug it into our formula. So f of the bigger number minus f of the smaller number over big minus small x. All right, f of 3, we said that was 13. F of negative 1, we said that was negative 3 over 3 minus a negative 1, that's 3 plus 1, which is 4. And that gives us 13 plus 3, that's 16 over 4, which is an average rate of change of 4. And if you look at this graph, what would the slope of this line between these 2 points be? Notice it's going uphill, so on average we're going up over that time. Now, are we going up all the time? No, but on average we're going up, and the slope of that line is 4. All right, the final version of this is that we need to be able to do this from tables. And reading this table, notice here is the x and here is the y, which in our case is h of x, that is coming out for each of those x's. And we want to find this for the interval from 1 to 2. So what is h of 1? Well, when x is 1, h is negative 4. And what is h of 2? Well, when x is 2, h is 24. And now we put that into our formula. So h of 2 minus h of 1 over 2 minus 1. So that's 24 minus negative 4 over 2 minus 1 is 1. So that's 28 over 1, or the average rate of change on the interval from 1 to 2 of the x's of h of x is 28.